I'd now like to introduce Jamie Culy, who's head of our Informed Innovation Department, who's going to talk to you about patent mapping.
I'm not used to being trapped behind a lectern. Normally I like to wander around, but with our camera here I'll probably try and start moving and not be allowed to. Our previous speakers have talked very much about technology. I'm going to be talking more about knowledge-based research. Now, before I start speaking, I should probably get the issue of the black eye out of the way. I'm not a member of a KISS tribute band. I didn't forget to take the make-off off. If any of you have seen the Two Ronnies sketch, the comment was all the right notes just in the wrong order. I can't do all the right notes anyway, so even a band like KISS I probably wouldn't be seen as being tuneful enough. Equally, I wasn't fighting the other speakers to where I came in the order. I'm afraid it's a cricket injury. Viv Richards, I was speaking to someone earlier, Viv Richards once said, there's no need to use a helmet because you've got a bat there to hit the ball. I forgot that one of the cardinal rules of cricket was to try and hit the ball with the bat and not with your face. Just a bit about myself. I started off as a medical physicist. I worked in the NHS for about 5 or 10 years. Moved into research commercialisation, raised money for small companies from venture capitalists, and worked in a spin-out company for a few years. And I joined Pera about 5 years ago, or nearly exactly 5 years ago, and I'm the head of our Informed Innovation Group. What I'm going to talk to you about today is a bit about patents. We do quite a lot of work with patents, and they're a very useful way of finding out research trends, ideas, finding out who your fast followers are, who your unexpected competitors are. A few of the things that we do, things like freedom to operate. If you've got a great idea, has someone done it before? If someone's done it before, is it someone who's going to come after you if they do? Things like state of the art, what else is out there? Inventing beyond. Inventing beyond's a very, very interesting subject. I believe Samsung have now trained something like 12,000 of their staff in TRIZ and are filing something like 100 patent applications a week to invent beyond their own and their competitors' technologies so they can corner the market. Now, obviously, they're in a very litigious industry. Ideas generation. It's a bit cheating. Look at what other people do and then find something that's a bit different. But we also do quite a lot of competitor mapping, white space mapping. Interesting areas, partner identification and headhunting. They're quite fun. And some due diligence work. What I'm going to talk to you today a bit about is looking at some of the different tools and techniques we can use, and some of the information that can be found. One of the important things to consider when you're looking at patents is that they're not the only source of information. It's also worth looking at what else is going on in terms of research and papers and general industry findings at the time. Most of our analysis, most of the work we do is confidential, so instead of trying to take one of the things we've done before and anonymise it and therefore have no actual useful information left, I've done a few different searches and found some interesting things, or hopefully interesting things, for today. And this isn't a deep analysis, it's surfing on the top of the data. One of the most valuable things with any of this kind of work is the skill and the mind of the person doing the analysis. I used to do a bit of work in medical informatics a few years ago, and one of the comments there was, if it's garbage in, it's garbage out. And if you don't know what you're looking at in the first place, or you don't know how to analyse it, then the value of the information at the end is going to be worthless. So, as many years back I used to work in medical ultrasound, I thought I'd have a look at medical ultrasound. I actually found out a lot more about medical ultrasound than I actually knew, which was a surprise. The the principles behind it actually all stem from back in the 19th century. All the physics behind the technology was discovered many, many years ago, and actually it's waiting for the technology to catch up, which has been in the issue. It was first used in the 1940s. A German inventor, I'm not sure who they used it on, but there was a lot of research going on until about the 1960s when people started to look to use it as an actual commercial system. If we look at the patent landscape against time, you can see going back to 1955 when the first one was there, but it's only really recently that you've got lots and lots of patents appearing, and actually that corresponds quite well with the real commercial uptake in the area. Around about the 90s when I was working, it was still very much a gold standard product. People couldn't afford very many of them, therefore there was limited sales. It was really towards the mid to late 90s and 2000s that it's really taken off as an imaging technology. And you can see that companies are following that patent landscape as the values there. So these are the top 20 companies in terms of number of patents. There's some big names there. Even if you're not in the medical industry, people have probably heard of General Electric, Siemens, Toshiba, Medtronic. But there's a few interesting points I picked up from looking at this graph. There's an Accuson at the top here, and they did loads here, and then it's all gone. What's happened? That was actually, they were acquired by Siemens in 2000 for $700 million. And you can see here that their patent activity registered as Accuson dies off, and then Siemens really takes off around about here. So Siemens obviously made the decision, as opposed to trying to develop the knowledge in-house, we'll buy it in. It's probably quite a good decision for them, it's worth a lot of money. The other interesting thing is you see these companies, the ones in red, if you look at the market statistics, they're the main leaders, they have a big share of the market, and they're all really trying to ring fence their eye technology now. The market in 2009 was worth 4.9 billion. So for these companies, it's really worth putting the protection in place to make sure that people don't tread on their toes. I thought I'd take a subset of those patents. A-scan stands for amplitude scanning, so it's a ultrasonic technique. And these are all the key inventors in that subset. Now, if you look at them, those are all Siemens, which is interesting. So you start tracking people, which is quite a good one. If you want to do headhunting in a particular area, it might be a good idea to look at who's really seminal in the area and see where they are. Accuson, you know, these two guys, they got bought out with Siemens, so actually these two guys are actually on a lot of the same patents as the guys underlined in red. Omnisonics, now they're very much a niche player. They're people who have specialised in this particular area, and so have been flagged up here. And we've got a chap called Peter Forsell from Milux Holdings. Now, again, looking at the map on just that, I've never heard of them before, got no idea who they are, and I thought I knew the area fairly well. So I thought I'd have a bit of a dig in to see who Milux Holdings were. Couldn't find anything about them. Now, what it looks like is that this particular chap and his company is simply a holding company for his technology. It could mean that there's a set of very valuable IP that's not held by any of the main players. So it might be worth having an investigate, you know, if you're one of the big players here, having a look at what he's actually got, analysing it properly, finding out if it's valuable, and then it might be easy to acquire that without treading on some of your main competitors' toes. As we've got a fairly diverse audience here, I thought I'd have a quick look at a couple of other areas. Oil sand extraction. I know there's a few oil and gas companies in the room. So this is a pretty hot topic in the oil and gas industry. How do we get oil out of oil sands or shale? So these are the main companies. This always interests me, unassigned patents. Now, what happens with any particular technology area, particularly if it's very valuable, is you get a lot of individual inventors protecting things, hoping that they'll get paid a lot of money for their patents. So in this area, obviously there's a lot of money involved, and lots of people have protected. But you've got some of the big players there. You've got your Exxon, Chevron, various people like that, Royal Dutch Shell. So that information on its own is not very useful. So I thought I'd dig in a bit more. So one of the things we can do is look at the IPC codes, the International Patent Codes. And if we look at them, we see there's a whole chunk of stuff in oil sand extraction to do with chemistry, a whole lot in operations, food stuff surprisingly, mechanical engineering, physics. And I thought, well, I know we've got a chemist at least one chemist in the room. I'll have a look at solvent extraction. And actually, if we look at solvent extraction, we see that there's a whole different set of companies involved. Some of the big players again, but some companies that have specified in this area. But what I thought was a bit more interesting was looking at the patents over time. So what we see actually is that there's three peaks in terms of patenting in solvent extraction in this area. You've got some big names here, Bertelsmann, Philips, Magna, Mobile. And then you've got some smaller names there, and then you've got some universities here. Now, I used to work up in Aberdeen, so I do know a bit about the oil and gas industry. And it suggests to me that some of these guys have had a look at it and they thought it's not worth pursuing. But I also thought, well, I'll have a look at the price data. And if you put the price data on top, this is the price of crude oil from 1954 onwards. What's very interesting is that you see that the peaks in the price data correspond to the peaks in the patenting data, which suggests to me that this is one of those technologies that as oil becomes more valuable, there's more perceived value in trying to extract oil from oil sands. Okay. And another one, because again, some food industries in the room. This is salt reduction in food. It's a big issue with the government. There's a lot of regulation to say you need to reduce salt in food, even if it doesn't actually work for the food type, because too much salt can cause, particularly in children, a lot of damage to kidneys. There's been cases of deaths when children under 2 have been given lots of cereal which is too high in salt and they've damaged their kidneys. In adults, increased blood pressure resulting in increased risk of stroke or heart attack. So just looking at, you've got some of the keywords here, so actually they're fairly usual. But if we look at this graph, we've got vision, how seminal the patents are on here and the value here. Now again, we've got this massive blob here. Now there's a Russian inventor who seems to have protected every single recipe under the sun for space. He's got something like 380 odd patents in this area, which don't seem to have much vision or much value. So I think I'll probably ignore him. But I believe Mondelears are going to be in the room. See here, they've got a lot of vision in their patents, and so the size of the blob is how many patents there are. But actually, the most valuable here is Cargill. Their patents are worth something in the region of $1.6 billion to them. So I haven't gone into much depth on this. It's really been very much a skim over the top. In my mind, patents are an incredibly useful source of information. They allow you to see trends, opportunities. They can allow you to develop a competitive advantage, particularly if you take a route like Samsung in terms of making sure that no one else can protect in the area they're developing in. You could say that's abusing the system somewhat, it might be. However, you can waste a lot of time and energy unless you know how to interpret the data. And one of the things about patents is the knowledge inherent in them is quite subjective. How someone reads them and how the patent attorney reads them, it can be quite different.
Thanks, Jamie. Very interesting presentation. Has anybody got any questions for Jamie Culy on the world of patents? Yes, please.
Your last graph on the salt example,
Yes.
can you say a little bit about how you get the axes and the quantifiers?
It's On this one, the size of the boards is the number of patents. On the bottom, it's the vision, so it's about number of classifications, number of citations according to the patent. How it's both the forward and the backward citations. So if a patent is really novel, it's not going to be citing many patents before it, but it will be cited by a lot of patents after it. So this one down here is all about the vision, and there's an algorithm to calculate how far along this line you go. This one is looking at revenue and litigation. So has the patent been successfully protected in court? What's the value of the product out of those patents? That kind of thing. The company we used to develop this has got their algorithms to calculate both of those axes, which they don't share with anyone, which is a bit mean, but understandable. But that's basically how they create it, is vision against value.
So that cargo example you said was worth billions of dollars.
Yeah.
Can you give me a bit of insight then? Because you said they've got this clever algorithm, but how do you work out it's worth billions?
It's worth billions because of how much it's been protected in terms of litigation, how much they've won. I believe they also look at the revenue out of the patent, although that can be quite a difficult thing to achieve.